We hope you enjoyed your lunch, and we have some exciting topics this afternoon. This first topic is about a very important discussion that's impacting our elderly community. This session really hits close to home. We've had several friends and families, parents, grandparents, and even great-grandparents who have been scammed, which have resulted in not only financial loss, but emotional and mental challenges. Protecting our seniors is paramount. This next panel will lead us through a fireside chat about cyber safety for our senior community. I'd like to first introduce Stephen Rubley, who will be our moderator for today's session. Stephen Rubley is the President, Government Segment Leader of Thomson Reuters. He is also the CEO of Thomson Reuters Special Services. Stephen brings 30 years of experience developing solutions to protect our seniors from fraud and scams, making him an expert to share insights on safeguarding this vulnerable population. Also on our panel is Cari Cistola. She is the Senior Director from Data Protection Engineering at Capital One, with prior leadership roles in research and intelligence. Jennifer Huerta is the acting Deputy Assistant Director from Cross-Border Financial Crime Center at Department of Homeland Security Investigations. Trisha Simmons is the Special Agent from our U.S. Secret Service. Please join me in welcoming our next set of panelists today.
Well, welcome back, everybody. I am so delighted to be the moderator for this topic. I'm Steve Rubley, and to have these incredible women leaders who are out there trying to fight the fight on this topic. When Debbie and I spoke about this early this year about choosing a topic, you know, we both immediately went right to this topic, and who would have known that this topic continues to be terrorizing our seniors, draining their bank accounts, their wealth, and many other crimes that affect other people around the world. So I'm delighted to be here, and you know, maybe first what I'd like to do is just go down the list and just talk a little bit about what you do and how you think about this topic we're here today. Maybe Cari, with you first.
Yeah, so my name is Cari Cistola. I work for Capital One in the cybersecurity division. This is a huge, you know, protecting our customers is the mission of our cybersecurity division ultimately. And so, you know, this is a huge part of, you know, how we think about what we do day to day. And so I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you. My name is Jennifer Huerta. I'm the acting Deputy Assistant Director for Homeland Security. Currently, I'm covering our Cross-Border Financial Crime Center, which includes financial crimes and specifically financial fraud schemes. So I'm very honored to have been asked to be here.
Hello, thank you for inviting me to this panel. I'm Trisha Simmons, Special Agent with the Secret Service based out of headquarters in Washington, D.C. My current assignment is the Global Investigative Operations Center. There we work with our local field offices, helping them with their cases, as well as maintaining relationships with the private sector. My day-to-day is I'm working cryptocurrency scam investigations and other financial crimes as well.
Great. Thank you all. So kind of the three key messages and areas we're going to be talking about today. Number one, this is an absolutely escalating transnational threat, not just in the U.S. And we'll be talking about technology, of course, is both the solution to this, but also a problem today. And we really want to talk about the collective action imperative that we can all take. So let me just start off with a few remarks just to kind of set the stage here for this. FBI's 2024 data showed that 147,000 victims aged 60 and up lost $5 billion, a 43% increase from 2023. The average loss per victim is $83,000. So I'll put this into context with two major indictments just a few months ago. In August, 13 individuals were indicted in connection with the Dominican Republic call center operation. Over 400 seniors, average age 84, lost more than $5 million to forced call center operations using openers, closers, and scorecards to track their success. In May, 8 individuals with ties to China were indicted for a scheme targeting 300 plus individuals across 37 states with $5 million in known losses. Using pop-up messages, fake government representatives, couriers collecting gold bars from seniors' homes. This isn't just coincidence, it's an alarming trend of sophisticated transnational criminal enterprises being brought to justice. So we're talking today not just about the threat, but what we can do about it. And I think a really important topic here is that we'll be talking about is a term, pig butchering. And if you don't know what pig butchering is, you're going to know today. Pig butchering, to me, is the trifecta of scams out there, and it is an absolute threat to our national security. It is run by China. It is targeting to try to transfer the wealth of people in the United States to China. That's a national security threat. It involves human trafficking and some egregious conditions across the world. And of course, it is draining bank accounts of the most susceptible people. The victims are mainly, a big chunk of them are going to be seniors. So that's going to be a big topic. Other topics, topic like sim boxing, which is those robo texts everybody's getting. It's a very sophisticated, organized activity that is hard to slow down, that we're all getting. You didn't pay your Easy Pass. You didn't pay your Amazon card, right? That is sim boxing. So with that said, Jenny from HSI at San Antonio, 2 major transactional indictments in 1 year. I mean, Dominican Republic, Chinese nationals. From your perspective and HSI's perspective, what should we expect next? And what early warning signs can organizations watch for?
Thank you for the question. Well, it's quite honestly, it's only going to get worse unless we continue with training and events like this to educate people. They're mainly run by Chinese money laundering organizations. They're often housed in places that are beyond the U.S. government law enforcement reach. And it's like with the increase of technology and AI, you know, it's easy to kind of mimic the sound of like your child's voice or your parent's voice or your voice to your parents. So like those things are gonna increase, and so we need to do what we can to try to protect the public. And I think the biggest prong here, aside from prosecutions, is the education piece. And so organizations can look for the same thing that I think FinCEN puts out, like unusual money movements, like things that don't match up, transactions that are moving quickly with no explanation, and that stuff. So that's what I would say. It's going to continue, especially with technology kind of moving at rocket speed right now. So,
thank you. Appreciate that, and we'll continue talking about what we can do about it. This is not all on government, folks. We'll get into that a lot, but there's a lot of companies and organizations and our country to step up. So, Cari, the Chinese case involved wire transfers, cryptocurrency, and even gold purchases. How can the financial institutions build detection systems that identify these varied money movement operations?
Yeah. So the reality is it's extremely challenging with the data and visibility that we have to build these systems. It's reliant on patterns that that can be seen inside of, the visibility that you have locally, but then also, information sharing is incredibly important to identify, patterns and identify signatures that can be used to detect and, ideally, hopefully prevent this kind of money movement. So.
And just curious on a follow-up of that, you also have these fintechs, right, where a lot of these transfers and accounts are being set up. Is it a big institution like yours compared to a fintech? I mean, would you say that, obviously you're a sophisticated big bank. Are the fintechs more susceptible to this because they just don't have the resources that a Capital One has?
I think it's challenging for everybody.
Yeah.
So I think it's something that we have to, solve together.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And Trisha, both cases use different tactics: call centers versus pop-up messages. I mean, how do you in the Secret Service, how do you stay ahead of these evolving methodologies, and what intelligence sharing helps the most to you and your organization?
I think for us, the reporting and the information sharing is where we get the intelligence in order to go after these bad actors. First, I'll talk a little bit about how we've seen technology change and evolve. Just an example for AI and pig butchering especially. Previously, when pig butchering first started, we saw these call centers hiring and trafficking individuals based on their expertise in order to profile victims and potential victims online based on social media. Now we're seeing that AI is replacing that, not entirely, but it's making it easier for these bad actors to get information and get a specific pool of who's most vulnerable online. And AI is even providing them data up to what time of day is best to call a victim. So with that being said, victim reporting and reporting just from any industry is one of the most effective and one of the strongest ways that we're able to know what the new methodologies that bad actors are using. It doesn't just have to be the financial aspect of how much money they lost and what platform they lost it on, but it can also be things like the perpetrator's behavior. At what point did they create a sense of urgency? At what point did they become aggressive? Was it the multi-factor authentication that upset them? Was it the delayed password reset? Those things are good intel for us because then we know what makes it so difficult for the bad actors, what points are pain points for them. And then that also shows us, just in the cybersecurity world too, what techniques are working. So with that, then we can train our people and we can pass that information to the private sector and also the platforms that host these websites.
Thank you. And maybe Jenny, Trisha kind of talked some examples and about the trafficking. And this term pig butchering, right? First of all, where did it come from? And also, can you explain to the audience, like, what really is pig butchering and how do they conduct these scams?
Okay, thank you, Steve. So I'm not entirely sure where it came from, but the term is really meant because they fatten up the victims. They build a lot of rapport with them before they ask for the money, before they butcher them. And so that can be done, I mean, sometimes it can be weeks, months of back and forth. There's romance scams. There's the pop-up, I'll talk very briefly about a case out of my office out of San Antonio. There's the scams that are on like Facebook. There's the scam, we're probably not supposed to mention specific platforms, but anyway, but there's scams that pop up on social media. And so, but with that, like one of the cases that my office worked was, she's a very intelligent woman. She was a stockbroker, I believe. She was 65, and it was she was targeted with an ad on a social media platform, and she ended up transferring like over $600,000 of her money to this organization. And she finally realized it was a scam. She went to the local police department, which was a small town outside of the bigger city, and they called us because they didn't know what to do. They didn't have the tools or the training to really attack it. And so we happen to have an expert in our area with crypto tracing, and he would tell you that it was mainly luck that he was able to, and the companies, Bitcoin, those types of popular ones, Tether, they are starting to work more and more with law enforcement. And so we were able to get the account frozen pretty quickly. And there was around $7 million in that account. And so that's a huge victim fund. And so right now we're working on identifying more victims so that we can get them their savings back, right? So, but what really helped was this lady, she took pictures and everything of every step of the way, screenshots of everything, which really helped with the crypto tracing. And so, you know, it's unfortunate that it took $600,000 before she came forward, but, you know, I mean, there's a lot of, I think, embarrassment with that causes them not to come forward and, or delays it. And then I think there's also just, they want, there's hope, right? There's hope that it's, you know, they're not being scammed. And so we were able to seize that money, and we're working on identifying other victims. And so that's, to me, that it's extremely evil. They target everybody. The organization, we did trace it back to Southeast Asia. DOJ does have a task force in Southeast Asia kind of specifically targeting this. I think it's fairly new. You might know more about that. But we're part of it, and you know, it's just unfortunate but it's Chinese money laundering. They're the ones that are hosting this down there. They tend to find vulnerable financial markets that don't have as strict of financial standards to basically exploit them. So that's just one example that's most recent that's in my mind. So
yeah, and look, they're one of the lucky ones that maybe they can get some of the money back, but the reality is 90% of the time, you're not getting the money back, right? In these kind of schemes when they're overseas in Southeast Asia. I mean, these are horrible, deplorable conditions. These are these compounds that are set up in Philippines and in Cambodia, Thailand, and now even in South America, where these people are just exposed to terrible conditions, forced labor, and they have metrics they have to hit. I think that, why is this more of a problem right now than before? I think that the pandemic has really fueled the appetite of these bad actors. And what I mean by that is, during the pandemic, some work that we did at TRSS, helping us to claw back about $1 billion that was stolen in California alone, we found that most of the schemes and the people behind it were outside the U.S. This is not U.S. low-level criminals. These are transnational criminal organizations, stole billions of dollars. So they got a taste of it. They got a taste of it. And now it's really become like this epidemic, was what I call it. So, Cari, as we think about prevention and you know, more of these defensive strategies, looking at both of those indictments, you know, one targeting emotional manipulation with grandparent scams, other using technology fears with pop-ups. What proactive measures can the financial institutions implement to protect seniors before they lose the money?
Yeah, well, I think that the best protection there is really prevention, and what I mean by that is education, right? These scammers look to create a sense of urgency, like we talked about, and that urgency for the elderly, like it can be very difficult to pull themselves out of that moment, right? And so one of the things that we, you know, really want to be able to do is to have them know that that is part of the strategy, and know that it's okay to pull themselves out of that moment and say, I'll call you back, or I'm going to hang up now, but I'm going to call the bank back using the number on the back of my card, and get the issue sorted out, or to say I'm going to give me a callback number. I'm going to talk to a family member, and then address help how I need to, right? And so basically just getting them to recognize that the right answer is always to pull back and pause for a moment and go ask for help or reach out, themselves to their financial institution, whatever it may be. That's, I think, the best, the most value for the time, like it's the most effective thing. Most
impactful. And then maybe Trisha, from the Secret Service perspective, can you talk about defensive strategies we can teach our seniors and their families to recognize this?
Absolutely. So we heard this on an earlier panel discussion, or it was the podcast actually, where she said, have these conversations. How many of you in here tell your mom or your dad like the latest scam that's going on? No? Do you? Great. It's not just me then. I think my mom is afraid to use her phone. But it's things like that, having those conversations, saying what the red flags are of scammers. Like we said earlier, the sense of urgency. They'll be quick to show interest, whether it's romantic or business. They'll make up any excuse they can to not meet in person. So talk about those. Have conversations about best practices. Not sending your money to anyone you haven't met in person or know. Using multi-factor authentication on your devices. We see that's effective. Having a designated person to go to. I don't know how many times my mom has sent me screenshots of things at first and said, is this a scam? Should I respond to this? But now she's, after educating her on this, she's empowered, and she said, hey, I got this message on Facebook and I know it's a scam. And she's even identifying how AI is getting better, because before there was the red flags of misspellings and everything like that, but now they're getting better, and they're even targeting to, like the toll one is very common, but before it was Florida and the thing, and now it's saying the state that she's in right now. But she's able to recognize that because we've had these discussions. Additionally, know that the Secret Service is there for you, and you don't have to wait until fraud has occurred to report something to us. You can also just call a local field office and run a scenario. Say, this is what I've come across, is this legitimate? And we'll give you feedback and guidance on what to do, or even resources for protecting yourself even further. And I'll also go just a little bit beyond that and make sure you guys hear a little bit something about the human element with it. Is based on statistics, someone in this room probably knows someone or will encounter someone, and hopefully it's not a family member, but it probably would be, that falls victim to this. And remember, the impact is more than just financial. It'll be a traumatic event for them. So just remember not to belittle them, be there, be supportive, guide them through reporting, and also how to continue to protect themselves.
Thank you for that, and thank you for what you all do there. Jenny, what about international cooperation? You mentioned Southeast Asia, and how can private sector support these efforts and even international cooperation?
Well, so HSI belongs to Five Eyes organization, and which is a partnership between the U.S., Canada, UK, Australia, and I believe I'll have to get that last one. But anyway, so we have all agreed to share information, both law enforcement and information that we get from private sectors. And so that's a big one, but that doesn't necessarily cover everything. So I do think that the DOJ-run Southeast Asia Task Force is going to become more important in the law enforcement world. It helps bring everything together. They sort of drive the mission forward, and with our partners, and they can help leverage their authority with these other countries to try to strengthen their financial laws as well, and just to continue to apply pressure. The other thing is a lot of these cryptocurrencies, I mean, they're housed out of the U.S. However, they are subject to some U.S. regulation, and they have gotten, because they don't want their platforms being used to commit fraud, they have gotten more friendly with law enforcement in recent years, and so we've had a lot of successes just based off of partnerships that we have with them, them freezing an account long enough to allow us to get a warrant and stuff like that, that allows us to be able to recover victim funds. And the last thing I'll say is I brought some handouts. I don't know that there's enough for everybody, but they're on the table, and it's about our Cornerstone program. There is an email address that is monitored by our financial crimes unit. So, please share that, and if we need to get more, I can talk to the organization and see if we could get it sent out via email or whatever. So, but that's it.
Appreciate that. Now, we have an audience of cybersecurity experts here, which is great. So maybe we turn it briefly to kind of industry action solutions here. Just why don't you keep going, Jenny, first. Cybersecurity professionals, what can they do in their organization to support law enforcement? And the same for you, Trisha. Law enforcement efforts against these transnational threats. Any advice? Organizations?
Yeah, they can make sure that they do have the latest kind of fraud detection systems in place. I'll definitely let Trish talk to more about this because she's actually working it. So my knowledge is definitely from a 30,000-foot view. But they can have that in place. They can have the partnerships to know who to call. They can it's like the know your customers type of stuff with organizations, and they mainly to keep up with the actual technology to detect it. So I don't know if you have something to add to that as far as what they could put into place to.
Well, essentially, it's just what we found from our victim reporting and the relationships that we have with the private sector, what's effective. And some things are the multi-factor authentication, having a multi-party involved in any account changes, and also having those like 30-minute password resets are effective. So if you can bring any of those in to make it more difficult for the bad actors, that's what our intelligence is showing us.
Thank you. And Cari, from a financial institution, like what technologies or processes, just building on what Trisha said, should every FI out there prioritize to protect the elderly?
Yeah, well, I think we've touched on a lot of them. So I don't know that I have much more to add there, other than from a process perspective. Again, I think we touched on the more that we acknowledge that fraud exists and happens, and the more that we talk about it, the more that we can also destigmatize being affected by fraud, and therefore increase reporting, and therefore, hopefully increase information sharing. And so I think, that would be what I would add.
Yeah, and you think it's adequate today with the information sharing with Secret Service and like a Capital One? Is there a good relationship, do you think, to work together?
Well, we rely really heavily on information sharing in general, and so I think that includes private and public sector. So. Okay,
good. So this is going by quick. We only have a few minutes left, but this is time for a call to action. I'm going to ask each of you, given what you know about these operation, what's one, and we've talked about some of these, but is there one really actionable step our audience can take back to their organizations? I mean, we've talked about that, but what rises to the top? And at the same token, what other either nonprofits or how do we continue to educate these seniors, other than us calling our uncles and our parents and grandparents, which helps, but just think about that. Is there one action item for the audience or something that we're missing? Is it AARP needs to do more? What is it we're missing that can help? Maybe start with you, Trisha.
Sure. I think for me, and what I see with my investigations, is the lack of the human element. We live in a technology-forward world, and we love it. But when victims say that they try to verify legitimacy, and they do call a number, and they can't get a real person on a phone, that makes it difficult for them to verify the legitimacy, and it makes it easier for the bad actors. So I would say if your organization has, a help desk, and maybe include the human element in there somewhere, we see that is helpful for the prevention of victimization.
Thank you.
Well, I would just continue to hammer on the education piece and partnering with organizations that tend to target or their audience is the elderly, such as AARP, some of the other local organizations, Elks Lodge, Veterans Affairs, things like that, where we can either put kind of brochure like that out, or just host events where either law enforcement or organizations can go to educate them on what to do. And just to wrap up, everybody's susceptible to it. My father was career law enforcement. He retired as a special agent, and just last year he got one of the text messages about you have to pay customs duties, and he clicks on it. So everybody, and it was one of those why would you do that? That doesn't even look like an email address or whatever. I was anyway, so it can affect anybody, everybody, and he was expecting an international package, so maybe they knew, they were able to find it. But so anyway, I would just say that education is probably the most important thing.
Cari?
Yeah, well, I would say, I think it's for every one of us here, it's going to be very dependent on our roles. I think sometimes it's not always, everybody in cybersecurity ultimately rolls back to protecting, protecting people's data. That's really kind of what it all ultimately goes back to. And so I think it's highly dependent on everybody's role, but everything that we've said here, bringing that knowledge back and then sharing it within your organization, making sure that everybody has this knowledge, and that, our organizations are all working, sharing those best practices, I think is.
Thank you for that. And I may have a couple too. Number one, we've got to get a couple companies out there that maybe unwillingly are enabling this to happen to step up. Meta. Our seniors aren't on X. Our seniors are not on LinkedIn. Our seniors are on Facebook. So predominantly. So it's a company like Meta's got to step up. This is where they're clicking. Maybe they're lonely. Somebody has a really good profile. They want to talk to them. Starlink. A lot of these crimes are done on the Starlink network. Elon Musk. So, we got some of the smartest people on the planet that need to probably do more. That's my call to action, and not just the big banks, but the fintechs are part of the problem. If they're banking these people, because they move banks from fintech to fintech. So thank you all today. I hope you understand, and these partnerships are going to be critical, not just here, but with the other countries. We got to get Congress, we got to get the media to talk about this more, and put some pressure on some of these other countries that are enabling these horrible centers that are being set up. So this isn't the beginning, or the end, this is the beginning, and I think this organization here can help and get some more groups involved. So thank you very much, folks, and thank you for our panelists.
Thank you.